Richplanet TV is sponsored by preppersafehomes.co.uk. Protecting you and your home against all forms of home invasion.
I've been covering a little bit on this issue, just to change the subject, the shooting of PC David Rathband. Now, this was a copper a few years back who got shot in the face with a sawn-off shotgun twice, at close range, and he's miraculously survived. It's incredible. But I don't think the mainstream media told the truth about this case, and I've been trying to find out information about it. Because Lisa French here, pictured, she was on the number 30 bus in 2005 involved in the London bombings, which blew up. Now, her testimony at the government inquest in 2011, in my opinion, was extremely dubious, because nobody on that number 30 bus saw Hasib Hussein, the supposed terrorist. That's because he wasn't on the bus, right? I've met the guy's dad, okay? We don't know how he died, but he wasn't on the bus. There wasn't a single witness saw him, described him. 6'4" Asian guy, right? So no reliable witness sightings of Hasib Hussein on the bus. Until 2011, 5.5 years after the London bombings, Lisa French at the inquest says that she saw him. And there's no record of her saying this at all previous to that. So she's an extremely important witness who is propping up, in my opinion, propping up the government's fake story that Hasib Hussein blew that bus up. Alright? She was dating PC David Rathband, who got shot in the face twice by Raoul Moat. Now, why is that suspicious? Well, the timing is interesting, because they were preparing this inquest in the summer, or just before the summer of 2010, right? And that's when Rathband got shot in the face. Right, so if and Lisa French here was under a psychologist, she was getting rapid eye movement therapy, she was being asked to relive the trauma in order to try and deal with it, alright? So I think they've possibly messed with her as a witness to get her to say the right thing to support the government, and Rathband maybe knew all this. I don't know this is the case, but I'm trying to find out more information on it. And the key thing in this case is when they met, because the mainstream media have claimed they met a year after he was shot, that they met on Twitter, right? And he's blinded and disfigured. I suspect he was seeing her before he got shot, okay? And I've got good reason to think that. So if I can prove that, I can prove that all the mainstream media have lied about the timing of when they met, and then that brings this motive really clear. I've done quite a lot of research since my last talk on this, and nothing I've found out so far contradicts the theory that Raoul Moat was possibly a Manchurian candidate programmed to kill him. Okay. Now, the other issue that I've been covering in a lot of detail are these two guys are historians, Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett. Now, you could stand here for a week to present all of their research. Okay. They've looked into the history of King Arthur and other ancient sites in the UK, and in my opinion, there's no doubt in my mind that they have found the resting site of the legendary King Arthur with the artefacts that they found at this dig that they had in 1990. But for some reason, the establishment have been trying to, well, they've been trying to murder them, they've been trying to intimidate them, they've been trying to discredit them, and all the information is on the website and in the TV shows that I've recorded them. And in 2011, something was put under Baron Blackett's bed, which exploded and nearly killed him. Right, so he was in a coma for 12 days. But the police have just swept this under the carpet. All right, and they'd have complained to the police because they haven't investigated it properly. The IPCC have been involved, and I've read that report, and it's just a joke. So a supporter is offering a reward of £50,000 for any information which leads to the conviction for the attempted murder of Baron Blackett on Sunday the 14th of August 2011. So I will be announcing that on the show, and so hopefully we might get a few people come out of the woodwork with this, with some new evidence. Okay, so after the break, as I said, I'm going to be talking about Almost Identified Flying Objects, my new film. So we'll reconvene at maybe 10 to 9, but thanks for listening to part 1. Thank you. Okay, right, I've opened these doors because it was a bit warm. Does people want me to close them? Or who wants to close them? Put their hands up. Who wants them left open? I'll close one of them. Right. Okay. Right. Okay, as I said, people submit UFO reports to me because this is a subject that I've been covering for a few years now, and I've collected 350 reports. And I contacted quite a lot of people who sent me these reports. I've interviewed some of them on camera, and this film is a result of that. There's quite a lot of background information as well in this talk, historical stuff which backs up what's happening in the present day. Now, I put information about this film that I was releasing on my website on, I think it was the 10th of May, and just 4 days later there was an article appeared in Mail Online. Now, what I said in the blurb of the film is that the film shows without any doubt that there are silent aerial vehicles triangular in shape, which are black, which have been seen all over the UK, and they're not being flown from UK military bases. Right? That's what I said in the write-up. So 4 days after I've put that on my website, this article appears in Mail Online. Now, one thing to point out about mainstream media articles which feature military hardware, they're not written by the Mail Online. It doesn't work like that. I know this from somebody who has had information published in mainstream, and they told me that an article like this will have been ordered by the Ministry of Defence or someone in the military. Okay, so this isn't a mainstream journalist who's found out about this secret aircraft and decides to expose it. It doesn't work like that. Mainstream wouldn't print anything on military hardware for fear of contravening a D notice, right? So the point being, the military want the public to know this information. So this article, it contains 16 images. They decided they needed 16 images, and these were big images. I've shrunk them all down, of this strange shaped stealth aircraft which can be launched from an aircraft carrier. Ooh. So implying that it's not landing at military bases, and it's shaped a bit like a triangle. So this is 4 days after I've said that triangle craft are in our skies. So yeah, you know where I'm going with that. Now, it's to me, I think they've put this out just to muddy the waters a little bit. But do notice, the guys on the aircraft carrier, they've got these great big earmuffs on. And the reason why they've got them on is because this is using a jet engine, right? And the vast, vast majority of people who've seen flying triangles, they're completely silent. Okay. Last year I said on the show that I heard that Prince Philip has a closet interest in UFOs, so a Richplanet viewer decided to write to him and ask him whether he did, and he actually wrote back. So this is from Prince Philip's aide, Captain Richard Hutton, and it says, His Royal Highness continues to keep an open mind on the subject of UFOs. So he's not the only person in high place that keeps an open mind on UFOs. Okay, so when somebody submits a report to me, they have to fill in all of these fields which describe what they saw, how fast the object was moving, how they felt about it, how big was it, what direction was it headed, the date, time, etc. All of the information. So I can capture all of the information and produce a report like this one. And as I say, I've got 350 reports from the last 2.5 years. Now, the most controversial element of the UFO subject is whether or not some UFOs that are seen in the sky are from a non-human origin. Some say extraterrestrial origin. And this is the sort of ridicule factor that comes in when people suggest that they could be. And the main argument that people use who say there's no way extraterrestrials could have come here is, they say, well, the speed of light is too slow for an alien race to get from another star to us in time. They come up with arguments such as that. Well, I think that's quite a weak argument, because it assumes that we know everything about physics and the universe, which we don't. It also assumes that there are not places closer where extraterrestrials may be, such as underground or in other parts of the solar system. But the main thing that people who haven't read or bothered to investigate the subject of UFOs miss is that it's possible that some UFO craft are the result of some kind of collaboration which has already taken place. And the testimony that a secret group, at least in the United States, at some point from 1947 onwards, was collaborating is quite extensive. I would point people to these three books. The first, written by Lieutenant Philip J. Corso. He worked on a secret project to do with the Roswell craft. This was a flying disc which was recovered in the desert in New Mexico in 1947. He led a team that was trying to decipher how it worked, and also to try and introduce some of the technology of that flying saucer into the military-industrial complex. It's a very detailed book, and he's a highly credible guy. Okay, the next book contains testimony from someone called Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar, some say, is a controversial character. I suspect Lazar's testimony is, well, let's say, at least part true. And he claims that he worked at an area called S4 near the infamous Area 51. And in 1989 he stated that the US had 9 flying saucers that they were trying to decipher their propulsion systems, and he worked on one of them. His information has been corroborated quite recently by someone who worked for the CIA and was sent to S4 under orders from President Eisenhower. The third book, this is by Dan Sherman, who also worked for the US, well, he worked for the US Air Force, and he was drafted into a top secret NSA project. Now the NSA is equivalent to our GCHQ, which deal with top secret communications. They deal with looking at radar information, this kind of thing. And the project that he claims he was involved with involved intuitive communications. So he was taken to this secret base, he was given a second secret job, and he was put in front of a computer screen. It's all detailed in his book. And a line was put on the computer screen, and he was played a tone through these headphones, and he had to mentally hum this tone, and eventually he could move the line up and down the screen. Then another line was put on the screen using another tone. So he could independently control all these lines on the screen even though he wasn't connected to it, because there was a device which was reading his mind and moving these lines on the screen. And eventually he was able to learn this language, which he described as intuitive communications. Now he said that the technology to be able to do this came from some outside group that the NSA had been collaborating with. And I spent the day with him last year. I met him at the Exopolitics conference. He's the most straight-laced guy you'll ever meet, and his story is extremely detailed. He's a very difficult person to say that he's made it up, in my opinion. So he's claiming that from 1961 they were running abduction programs that the NSA were being informed of, right? So it's in some way joint. All right, and you can watch that full interview from my website. So, as I say, don't forget that when you see a UFO, it's possible that it belongs in that category, that it's perhaps some human craft which is using outside technology, or maybe it is an alien ship which has been facilitated by our own NSA or military. But as a matter of fact, I'm not bothered where your belief lies. I'm happy for people to think that there's no way outside entities could be controlling things in our skies. If you want to think they're all military and they're all human, that's absolutely fine, okay? Or if you want to think that a lot of them are just alien ship, that's fine. Because it doesn't matter. Because what I'm going to present to you will show, beyond any doubt, that there are silent black triangles in our skies that seem to defy our laws of physics, that is being covered up, all right? And the testimony will prove that later on in today's talk. So regardless of your belief as to where or who is controlling them, you need to be aware of it, because it's being covered up. Okay. Now, we also need to point out secret aircraft that have been developed, and one person who has spoken a lot about the secret aircraft that have been declassified is Michael Schratt. You can watch some of his lectures online. And he speaks about as I say, declassified craft that were developed by Lockheed Skunk Works, and some of the craft that he describes are incredible. So this is 1980s technology. One of them he describes is called the TAV. Can go in a low Earth orbit. It can orbit the Earth 3 times without refueling and can go from Los Angeles to Melbourne in 55 minutes. Right, and that's been declassified and admitted to. The one on this collection of craft here, this one, that's the TR-3B, that's an alleged secret craft. And I think this one is, it's an artist's impression of a secret craft, the Aurora, which crashed at Boscombe Down in 1994, but the rest of them are stuff that have either prototypes that have been developed. Okay. So when people see a UFO, often the response from a skeptic will be, yeah, well, that was just a secret aircraft. And then the witness will often say, no, they wouldn't be flying one over the UK. Well, we need to point out they do fly secret US craft over the UK, because as I said, one of them crashed in 1994 at Boscombe Down. This article says that the US spy plane crashed and may be kept under wraps. A top secret US United States spy plane, which flies at the edge of space at 5 times the speed of sound, crashed at the British Experimental Airbase at Boscombe Down, Hampshire, in 1994. So the SAS were sent out, they put a cordon over it, and then a big transporter plane came, shipped into there, and it was shipped back off to the US. It's believed to have been the Astra or Aurora craft. The US military don't even admit that this craft actually exists. But one of them definitely crashed at Boscombe Down. So we know that they do fly secret experimental aircraft over the UK and also over Germany. In 1989 there was another crash of a secret aircraft. And listen to what Michael Schratt says about some of the characteristics of this one. So this is an aircraft that hasn't been admitted to, but people got sight of it because it had crashed.
The only known illustration of a top secret aircraft that crashed in the East German border region during the first month of the Bush Senior administration. Had a crew of 2 that sat tandem. Now I'm proposing that this was a Lockheed design just for the fact that you can see the same faceted flat plate technology used on the F-117. It had 3 balls. There were 2 up front, 1 in the aft section. And when this particular aircraft crashed, that you'll see right here, there was a hull breach on the port side, and then near the aft section of the hull there was a crack or bent at about a 15-degree angle. One of these balls popped out, was later recovered by crew. It had the consistency of a pineapple or a seashell, and there was a interesting gold braid embedded into these balls. And when these gentlemen recovered one of these spheres and they put this box around it, this box actually popped up on its own. So it had some residual effects still going on.
So interesting there, this craft has 3 balls embedded in the corners of the triangle that produce some residual effect. And that might be relevant to something I'm going to explain a little bit later.
Richplanet TV is sponsored by PrepperSafeHomes.co.uk. Protect you, your family and your home against possible future civil unrest.